Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am excited to kind of dig into this topic. I know it's going to be a long video, so I am going to put chapters in there, but I'm going to tell you I'm excited and I hope that you're ready to dig in with me. So two things affected my inspiration for this video. The two things are that there was a recent lawsuit posted in Massachusetts about AI in schools. And then at the same time, people know that I've worked a lot in schools and with technology and working students to prep them for the STEM industry. So I've been asked a lot about my opinion about AI. And so I'm going to review some new topics of how we can kind of wrap our head around this topic, probably in a new way that you really haven't been exposed to too much, or in a new way that offers a new perspective, hopefully. And then the other thing that inspired me, because that's what I love about our world, that we can come in with inspirations from so many different angles, is that I am really inspired by Mel Robbins these days. Shout out to Mel Robbins for you and your podcast. Congratulations on your new book, Let Them, and all of your inspiration and growth that you're doing. And you're an inspiration to me. And recently I listened to a podcast of yours, and I think it was actually from longer than a year ago, that you were speaking to someone who specializes in youth and the psychology of youth, and also was in the Washington Post as a reporter. And what you guys really dug in to talk about was something that was sad to me, but definitely automatically became a call to action, was that students these days, or youth these days, it's the first generation that we have that has health outcomes that are less than their parents'. And so that means that they're not living as long, they may not have as great of access, and they may not have as much opportunities available to them with professions, health, family, living situations, etc. That's sad. Obviously, it has to do with COVID as one of the factors. And mind you, I think this perspective is in the United States. And that the main culprit of, or the main result of these students and their health outcomes and kind of what they've been exposed to, is that they feel that they don't have a sense of value in our world. Let's take a moment to think about that for a second, because we want to let that sink in. That's really sad, right? And I'm sure, being trauma-informed, many people can think of many traumatic things that are affecting students these days in and out of school. And there's just acknowledge that there's many factors that are impacting our youth, and it's our responsibility to not just show them that they have value, but to show them and to express to them that they matter. And that was the solution that was in that podcast as well. So a lot of my statements will be focused on how can we make students feel like they matter. So how does making students matter relate to the topic of AI in schools? That's what we're going to dig into today, unravel some things, get to the core of the problem, and have some solutions as to how we can feel confident when addressing the issue of AI in schools, and also know that we're serving students and youth today by giving them opportunities to feel that they matter. So the agenda for today is that I'll tap into talking a little bit about like my credibility, my point of view, my background, and how this has led me to this conversation. But I will say now I invite anyone to just know that this is my point of view, and I invite other points of view because that's the only way that I can learn, others can learn. This is just my point of view, my perspective. So that's why I want to start off with, what is the breadth and depth of my experience, and how does it relate to this topic of AI and students mattering? We'll dig into this lawsuit, talk about what it is and how we can kind of unravel the layers of the onion to really look at the core of the issue. And we'll look to specifying what I believe, based on my experience with students, what do students need schools to provide them? So what do they deserve to have? What do they have the right to have in order for them to matter now, but also grow in their professional careers and grow as their own personal self-development as human beings? Remembering that the nature of schools are to best prepare our youth in a safe environment for a thriving future where they can be successful. That's the core of what schools are for. We'll go into then, how do you actually implement technology? So right now, AI may or may not be appropriately being implemented as to the rules of, or the best practices of how technology is normally implemented. And so I just wanted to highlight that so that people can either use that methodology or acknowledge whether or not AI is being implemented in that way. And last but not least, of course, I'll provide a solution with using design thinking and human-centered design in order to, on the local level, go to individual schools or school districts or communities to use design thinking and human-centered design as the methodology to problem solve in that community, to determine what the current status is of the school and the students and their learning environment, and whether or not it's appropriate and how it's appropriate to implement AI or some form of AI technology, and then also come up with a phased plan to do it. So again, you not only have a policy, but you have a strategic plan where you're confident about how this technology will be implemented into your school, so you're protecting the students. And I'll circle back continuously that it is our job and duty of all citizens of this planet to protect any youth under the age of 18 so that they are safe and protected, and so that we provide them the best opportunities possible so that they can thrive and grow into their futures. All right, let's dig in. All right, so here's my background. I will categorize myself right now that I am a woman in STEM. I've worked in STEM in many capacities. I'm very proud to say that I work in technology development. I've also worked in STEM as what I call a translator. I was at NASA, in and out of NASA, for about 10 years now, that I took NASA missions or content or science and translated it to the public so the public could understand. I went the extra mile because it became very passionate about then, quote unquote, quote, recruiting for NASA to say, I'm going to give you this information, but I also want to tell you how you can become a professional to do this, and became very passionate about equity, identity, access, accessibility, and diversity in STEM, because there are very challenging problems in STEM right now, and it will require a lot of diverse points of view in order to solve those problems. And I became very passionate about workforce development. One of my passion projects was developing a internship program with some amazing people. So shout out to all of you on the SCAN program at NASA for space communications and navigation. And what we really did was go out to the community all over the United States and look for inspiring, creative, and innovative students from all walks of life. So students were from Alaska to Puerto Rico, from rural to urban, from community colleges to Ivy League, from high school to PhD. It wasn't necessarily their backgrounds. It was about their ability and aptitude to be innovative and creative. So we'll dig into that today. But know that because of the internship program that we developed and nurtured and still exists today, NASA has been able to foster and extend their abilities towards quantum communications. So shout out to those interns who really made a difference. They brought new innovation, creativity, breath of life into the team that inspired everyone to think differently, to think outside the box, to think about things in ways that we had never imagined before, and help us to push forward with quantum communications. If you don't know what that is, I highly recommend you to check it out. It's beyond time or space. So again, I'm a STEM professional. What's interesting is that I always have been an artist as well. So I actually got my foot in the door at NASA by being a communications strategist and working with social media, and then quickly was able to get my hands in other types of problems to use my creative sense as well as my logic to help solve problems. But my career actually started as an art educator where I was teaching in Baltimore City schools, and I taught a trade program in a high school for a couple years where the trade program was print. Print is obsolete, really, and so these students had all these presses, printing presses, and we ended up getting a grant to buy brand new Apple computers so that students could become graphic designers, really. And so shout out to all of you from Edmondson Westside High School. I know all of you are doing well. You didn't necessarily become graphic designers, but I do know for a fact that you leverage creativity in your lives, and I'm very proud of that. As creative problem solvers, you've been able to navigate all kinds of interesting careers and families and communities, and so I'm proud of you. And so that was really the beginning of my career that saw the impact of STEAM, adding the arts into STEM, which made STEM more approachable and inclusive and really increases interest and creativity and innovation. So I come from that perspective that as we move forward in our world, we want everyone to be creative and innovative in order to solve complex problems. So that's my perspective as an educator, as a design thinker, as a technologist. I'm very passionate about my way of thinking. I'm a systems thinker, so I like to see the big picture. And so when it comes to STEM workforce development, the whole landscape starts in kindergarten and goes through, obviously, high school, college, or maybe trade school certifications into the workforce, and also includes the people who are retired in STEM because they play a key role in giving back to the community and teaching their wisdom. So developing a teaching and learning community and culture of always learning and always giving back your knowledge to those who are coming up behind you to have ongoing learning and nurturing of wisdom is the best way to move forward. And so that's my perspective, and thank you so much for allowing me to share my perspective with you. Okay. And then in the end really is that I truly, truly, truly care about students. I think you've heard that. And that I do truly care about teachers as well. We're not talking about teachers today. We'll get that in another topic some other time. Teachers can definitely use AI. Time is of the essence with teachers. You have very little of it, especially considering your pay is so low. So I would not be working for free. So if my pay is low and I have a high stressful job that I'd rather be focusing on my students' social emotional learning and success, yes, I would use AI to help me write my lessons, do my research, align my grades, come up with curriculums, etc. Track data so that I could be responsive to my students, etc. Yes, 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 yes. That is a different topic. We will not be talking about that today. We are going into the more vulnerable landscape of talking about students, as I mentioned. Okay, so the lawsuit occurred recently in Massachusetts that parents sued the school because the student used AI to write an outline. I believe the student was like a sophomore or a junior, not a senior. It had a snowball effect. And mind you, this is the story that's like narrowed in, that's in the news. Okay, so I'm telling you the story that came out in the news. No one is making any statements. Parents aren't making statements. The school is not making statements. So we don't really have any depth to this lawsuit. We don't really know what actually occurred, but we do know that what the news has said. So that's what I'm talking about. So, excuse me. So the parents sued the school because the student used AI to create an outline for a research paper. Turned the research paper in, the teacher gave the student a D. It did not end there, though. They're saying that the student was not able to join the honor society at the school, and that the parents were at the core upset because they believed that this affected the student's ability to have a stronger college application and prevented the student's success. I have a hard time to believe that one outline, 1D had that much of an effect. So obviously, as this lawsuit comes out, we would have a better idea of, what really happened at this school. So we're going to use this story as an inspiration. It's not going to be a case study, nor the way that we find the solution. Not at all. This will just be a way to unpeel the onion to kind of look at some of the deeper issues of what's going on. So the loophole that the parents found at the school was that the school implemented an AI policy the year after the student received the D. So at the time that the student received the D saying that you could not use AI, there was not a AI policy at the school. So it was probably a year or two ago. So, okay. I just want to kind of address the fact that where I'm coming from as a teacher. So the core of learning is that a teacher makes an assignment because the teacher wants to teach the student a certain skill. And then the student is going to go out, follow the instructions of the teacher, learn that skill, and then demonstrate how they learn the skill. When they demonstrate their learning, the teacher then scores the student based on how well they achieved the skills or how well they were able to demonstrate those skills in that assignment that they turned in. So I'm going to assume then that the teacher did not say write an outline using AI. AI is a technology tool, and if this was computer class or digital literacy class, then the teacher would say use AI as a tool. So the tool was not mentioned to use. So it is assumed that the student would be able to write this outline on their own. Case in point, I don't think that you have to have an AI policy that defends whether or not that student can use it. The tool was not asked to be used for this assignment. The teacher wanted the student to learn and demonstrate outlining and writing an essay. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. So, of course, in high school, students should be able to write outlines and write essays. I will say, working in equity in schools in the urban environment, deep rural environment where education is not as equitable as other schools, there are students that do graduate from high school that are not able to write a 5-paragraph essay unless there is a teacher out there that is going to really work with them to make sure that they did that. And that's because they just keep getting passed on throughout the years. And they can fail it or pass it. Somehow it sneaks through the cracks, and they're not necessarily good writers nor know how to do any of those types of things. In addition, students deserve to have more than literacy skills. And this is where the STEM and STEAM skills come in that I'll get to mention specifically later when I'm on that topic. But there are skills to best prepare students for the future of STEM, or really any career. And again, STEM is life. STEM is life around us. So every student benefits from STEM skills. It helps you to be a problem solver in your real life or your professional life. They're critical skills that really help us to matter as human beings as we're moving forward in time. That, we will always hold our value as human beings over machines and technology, because we have the ability to add certain skills that a machine is not able to add, such as empathy, integrity, ethics, creativity, innovation, etc. I also want to say that broad brush stroke saying AI in schools is very, 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 very general. And I will promote that technology implementation should be done in a very specific way, which we will talk about later. And at this point, where we're acknowledging in this school, there are 2 points of interest. The students do not have AI, and then there is an AI policy. But with tech implementation into a school, there is a lot more factors that are considered when doing that. One of them being digital citizenship, teaching students how to use the technology as a digital citizen. I will also say that in the topic of schools rushing to get AI into the schools, I want to argue that why aren't you yelling and screaming about implementing social emotional skills? Because obviously there's a problem with students and their sense of self-value in this world. So we should be screaming just as much about that topic. But what I do know about schools, I've been a teacher myself, is that you'll come in August, in the end of the summer, and you'll have 2 days of professional development. And during those 2 days of professional development, your principal will look at you and give you a whole very long presentation. Not all schools, but most schools, I will say. And they will say, you will be doing this, and this year, which is all brand new. And you only have now, where clock is ticking, less than 48 hours to learn how to implement that into your classroom. Obviously, schools have a hard time with change management. We won't add the factor that they necessarily aren't demonstrating a respect for teachers, but we'll ignore that factor and just say, administration leaders don't know change management, and I will advocate for the teachers that simply is not fair. You cannot implement new things that quickly. All right, and don't be afraid to always be so far behind when you should be worried about the foundational things and making sure that your students are receiving the basics. And I believe that the basics of today are very similar as of 10 years ago when I was growing up, same in the 90s when I was growing up, there are foundational things that take a very long time for students to learn. Let's make sure that we're continuing to make sure that they're actually achieving those things first. I remember being a student in the 90s and computers were coming out, and I didn't learn a computer. I learned a little bit of keyboarding at school, but not much. And I was able to go to college and quickly learn how to use a computer. There was never an issue. All right. And then obviously deeper than the policy is schools need to be human-centered, which is student-centered. And I will argue that these parents are not coming from a student-centered approach of what is best for their student. And of course, they will argue it because they're saying that their student didn't go to college or wasn't as competitive in college application because of this 1D. And I will argue that that is not true. Without further ado, let's go into the next topic. Okay, so when I was recruiting for NASA interns, again, reminding you that they were pushing top technology at NASA. These students came from all over. They actually also included homeschool kids. So they were homeschooled, they were for rural, urban, middle class, upper class, lower class, community colleges, Ivy League, Alaska, Inuits to Puerto Rico, all over the United States. What we were looking for was much different than what most people thought. And when I did outreach for thousands and thousands and thousands of people, large events all over the United States, parents would run up to me at the booth or after my presentation and say, "What can I do to get my student into NASA? What can I do?" And I would always answer with the same answer. Here's your answer. We were not looking for students who are overexhausted with straight A's, AP classes, multiple languages, played an instrument, played sports, tons of activities, pushed around by their parents, really just that, pushed around by their parents. Their parents are telling them what to do. So obviously they're not free thinkers. That's a highly stressed student, which we're learning again, is making these students feel like they don't matter because they have very low self-esteem because you are putting too much pressure on them. Not healthy. Of course we want students who play sports. They're a team player. Of course we want students who are high achieving because they're high achieving. But we had to dig deeper with students to really see if they would be successful at NASA. And the success was if they were humble and hungry was the first thing we were looking for. Humble and hungry. Meaning, are they humble enough to say that there is so much bigger things out there than them, and that they are able to learn from others and able to constantly explore and inquire? That's that hunger, that they had a deep sense of hunger, that deepness in the pit of their stomach that makes people want to share their knowledge with them and wants to work with them, and because they can see that they know that knowledge is deep and they want to keep digging deeper and deeper to understand the people around them, the problems around them, the world around them. Humble and hungry. Oh my gosh, that was like the game changer. If the student wasn't humble or hungry, they weren't going to make it in the program. They'd end up coming in very egotistical, pompous, pretty privileged with an attitude. No one would get along with them. They'd waste a lot of time. They expect things to be provided for them. They did not have that attitude of, I am going to roll my sleeves up. I am going to figure this out. I am going to be okay with failing. I am going to be okay with constantly getting back up on my feet to try again and go deeper until I could find a solution. And that's where the innovations came, when they would have that spark of amazing insight and creativity, that they dug deep enough for all those thoughts to come together in a good way without worrying about posting on social media about being at NASA or asking for a desk telephone so that they can look important. Like those students, they would waste so much time, and students who didn't care about those things were the ones that were meeting so many engineers and scientists and managers and had an amazing network of people who wanted to support them and pour into them. Okay, so word to the wise and parents, please stop pressuring your students. Just let them follow their path, follow their passions, let them explore, let them fail, please. And know that creativity and innovation isn't from all of those things. It's from a well-balanced student who kind of has a better idea of what they want, not what you want. All right, but anyways, so preparing students for the main challenges, like for instance, NASA wants to go to the moon and set up a lunar economy. That includes a lot of different types of background skills, careers, etc. And that's one example. There's many things. Like if you look at the United Nations, they'll talk about their 16 priorities, 16 I think it is, sorry if I'm wrong, their priorities with ending global hunger, giving education to all, etc., addressing climate change. These are some of the bigger questions, and we kind of align student success and student training to these challenges. So like a student who is graduating in the 12th grade that has access to these challenges as well as the skills in order to provide a valuable insight on their own personal professional point of view to help solve these problems. That's the student that matters. That's the student that has value. So the skills are, there's STEAM skills, I call them. Starts with empathy. Knowing what it's like to be in someone else's shoes, truly listening and truly hearing what people are saying, truly hearing what the problem is, deep listening. That's all included in empathy. We're not getting into the skills, but I'll describe them a little bit high level to you. So empathy is one, and mind you, remember that is man over machine. No machine can have empathy. I don't care how much you try to prove me wrong. Humans will still always have value with having empathy. Next is critical thinking. That's an obvious one. Problem solving, already discussed a little bit. The ability to research and know what facts are. We know that is a problem. So yeah, some parents are saying, hey, let's just give our kids a chat bot to get information. Yeah, nah, not quite. A teacher can, you can, but your students need to know how to use critical thinking, critical evaluation to know what is factual and what is reliable. So that is part of their research skills. The next is evaluation, which includes data collection, qualitative, quantitative, being able to evaluate any situation, problem, person, product, process, and be able to have a critical mind within that, use data, and address challenges, gaps, opportunities. That is a key skill. Evaluation. Next on the E train is ethics. Ethics is another big one. It's huge. Should we create this technology? It may have a greater social implication. That is how we will combat man over machine ethics. And I have a specific tool for ethics that we're actually going to use with our students, families, and teachers when talking about AI. So we'll might as well start talking ethics now. Point of view. So again, if you ask AI to write a paper for you, it's going to be very general. It can change tone, but what's important is, imagine your students are in a literacy class, social justice topic comes up. They express points of view and learn that a social justice topics has many different points of view. For instance, immigration. Immigration, you can look at the point of view of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, the point of view of policy of the U.S. government, point of view of people who live on the border, point of view of the immigrants, point of view of people who have been unjustly deported from the United States historically. Let's look at these points of view and learn that there is a broader approach when we're solving problems. You can leave it as simple as writing an essay. All the students had the same topic of the essay. And they all wrote different stories, and they can share their stories or their research and show that there are different points of view. Again, pointing back to humans over machines, mattering with point of view. I mentioned it a little bit before. I like the acronym IDEA. You can have DEA as well, but I like IDEA for inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. Everything's tied up in one. Each one of those is very dynamic in its own. But yes, students should know what it's like to wear that lens when they're taking on challenges and finding user-centric solutions. I'll give you an example. Accessibility. They can learn what it's like to be visually impaired and use the computer. That skill of empathy will help them. But then with accessibility, they will have the ability to verbalize and be advocates for those of different types of abilities. All right. I love that topic, and I may have gotten a little sensitive about it. Whew, okay. Last, I'm going to list, there was like 7 or 8, 9 of them, but this is the last one, is digital citizenship. So yes, most schools do not have this. How do you teach students to be digital citizens? Mind you, notice I also didn't put social emotional skills within this because that's a broad brush, and I think social emotional skills could be woven into each one of these. But specifically, digital citizenship is how do you use technology appropriately with integrity and empathy. And that's where students can improve their skills in watching social media, posting on YouTube, etc. How can you be a good citizen? We know that we have issues with people commenting and cyberbullying, and that is something that's important to teach students that is not acceptable, and a student of integrity is a digital citizen. All right, so those are the skills, and I will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They all should be on a checklist when schools are analyzing if the students are ready, and they should all schools should have the majority of the students at a high success rate in all of these skills before they even start to implement AI. I also want to share then next, moving on, is the normal protocol for implementing technology. And I will take a step back. So again, we're looking at AI in the schools. And for some reason, AI is coming in fast and furious, and no one knows what to do. And I'll tell you why. Because most often technology services a need, and that's why technology exists. But AI came in with a broad brush stroke saying, hey, we're here and we're here to stay and you better figure it out. So there is a huge lack of understanding of AI. We did no preliminary education before AI came out, very little bit. And there was just this doom of saying, it's coming, get ready. There was no implementation plan. It's been very dynamic and irregular and crazy, just coming out at different times and being kind of thrown down our throats, and us being asked to normalize it into our society. So as a mindful leader, as a servant leader, I will say, take a deep breath, breathe in, and use it as an opportunity to not be anxious or get frustrated or upset, but instead say, let's breathe and take a step back. Yes, it is crazy. We do not have control over this, but what we do have control is how it affects us. There is no need to have, I don't operate on a fear-based mentality of saying that it's going to take over and the world is ending and all of that spiraling down. We have a positive growth mindset of ascension, saying this is happening and we have the ability and the power and the control to say how it will impact us. And then obviously if we're affected by schools, how it will affect our school community and our students, most importantly. AI is rapidly developing and changing, and there's a fear of being left behind, but please, technology has always been here. It's going to be okay. The phase of normalization is take a step back and set a firm foundation, know where you stand, and implement it in the normal protocols of how technology should be implemented. So let me tell you, here you go. Ready? All right. So new technology should be developed. Here's the steps. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. Don't worry, it's not that much. 7 steps to synchronicity of technology and humans, right? All right, so new technology. First, as I mentioned before, technology should always be need-based. So research the need. Research, qualitative, quantitatively. Where is the need? In this instance, it's with students. So I already gave you what should be the foundation of what we're looking at. And you could do that research to see where are there gaps, opportunities I should rephrase it. Gaps or opportunities for students where just address it there. Don't even say where AI would be needed. Where are there gaps and opportunities in students being able to have this foundational knowledge and skills that they need? Period. Do that research. You'll be looking at students and their needs, not just their grades. Then you identify the need, okay? You're able to have a clear understanding of the landscape and be able to identify that need. Then you evaluate your technology options. So usually you want to find a specialist and saying, this is what's out there right now. And you analyze those things. And there's a process with that, but it doesn't have to be cumbersome. You usually get a salesperson, honestly, and they'll tell you the value proposition and why it services a need. So that's salespeople from technology companies are very clear about the need that the technology is providing a solution for. Then what you're going to do is have a culture change strategy, right? So you're not doing it 2 days before school starts. You're actually going to align all your stakeholders, your parents, your guardians, your family members, your community, your students, your teachers, your administration, and you're going to get leadership buy-in and communicate clearly what is the value of the user and come up with a communication and implementation plan to implement this new technology. Next, you're going to phase this implementation. So you may start with the focus group, see how it goes, test and evaluate it, and then scale from there. So for instance, you could take what I've done before when I'm implementing new products, services, or programs into a school. I will take a teacher who is an ambassador to my program or to the idea or to the solution, who's someone who's excited, who has the time. Let them implement it. You work with them, and then you start to slowly communicate how that person did it and how you can then choose another classroom and start growing over time. You want to clearly communicate in the next phase the lessons learned, how you iterated, and your successes. Everyone wants to have success and have a party. And then you continue your implementation. Again, this is with any technology, not just AI. I hope you use these 7 steps when considering how and when to implement AI, if you so choose. I will give a best case scenario of a school that I think, and they are actually, but they're very primed and potentially ready. I don't know their data, but they are potentially ready to implement AI, potentially in the upper school. I did work at a private school. So it's a private, very elite private school with a lot of technology, a lot of funding for great programming, highly engaged, diverse educators from all over the world. Students are very engaged. There's a low student to teacher ratio. It is just your ideal learning environment. Time is mostly focused on learning, and students are able to go deep into the learning process. Additionally, the curriculum itself is inquiry-based. They have digital citizenship, social emotional, and design thinking curriculums. So they have all the curriculums. The students are able to use their voice when it comes to choosing some of their learning paths. Their voice is valued. They have an active student council where students' voices help to implement change within the school culture as well. So if I went through the checklist of the students, do they have all the STEAM skills? Likely. Where are the gaps? We can address those gaps and then be able to implement. Possibly we could do a chat bot in the upper grades, even in the lower grades, specifically implemented at a specific time when they know that that tool is there for them to learn the tool. They can also identify the difference of using the tool and not using the tool. That is actually part of both NGSS standards and social emotional standards when we're looking at the topic of change, of saying win-win situation versus a win-lose situation, or change in nature and how it impacts our environment. Both of those are closely related, again, both in social emotional and STEM learning. So there is plenty of opportunity within existing curriculums to do a small implementation of a chatbot and then see how that goes with student awareness of what you are doing and what the tool is for. I actually never talked about what the tool is for. In general, AI is meant to enhance our abilities. Talking about, again, why I personally would say no, AI should not be in K through 12, because those are the years, the formative years when students are learning the foundational skills, and they don't need to have a companion when supporting or enhancing their abilities. That comes later in life when you have less time to be everything. So for me, for instance, I do use AI. I'm a great writer, but I am so used to having a technical writer on staff. If I'm not currently on staff with a technical writer, then I will use AI to polish my writing. But it still always has my tone, my voice, my point of view, my outline. All right. So focus now on mattering. Mattering of student value, our human value in society, and how we will continue to be valuable and use technology as tools. So thank you so much. I know this has been long, but I knew it would take a while to get through this. And as I've mentioned kind of throughout, music design thinking is really powerful for a school. This whole process we went through, we would do this in real life, in real time, asking the real questions, having the real discussions, looking at the data in real time together to come up with the need, understanding the gaps. Let's start in the beginning. Understanding the gaps, coming up with the need, identifying the solution, figuring out how we're going to implement it, slowly implement it, and grow. And so what you'll get is a strong policy and a strong, almost school doctrine of saying we believe we have a deep belief system now. We feel confident and in control of AI and technology, and we feel that this is what we're capable of doing, and we believe in it, and we are doing it as a team, as a culture, as a community of learning together. All right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please keep me in mind. No, I'm not doing a pitch for myself. Please keep design thinking in mind when coming up with your methodology to discuss this as a school. Use this video, put it on repeat so that you can go through those steps. But of course, you can contact me. I would love, 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 love to come out to your school to be a design thinking facilitator and facilitate this conversation. I want you to be confident and in control of AI in your community, that you don't run the risk of parents suing you or run the risk really of what matters, of your students falling behind or having access to tools that they shouldn't have access to, essentially running the risk of not protecting your students and your students' success and your students' future. Thank you so much, so much. Remember, we all matter, and we can all only matter if we stay in the light and that we share our knowledge and wisdom with each other. Thank you for listening to me again today, and please subscribe or share this with someone who will take value of it, and I will see you next time. Peace.